What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. Right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Tony Horton, Baby Einstein founder, Julie Clark, Atari founder, and many, many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Today's episode, this is going to be a little bit different episode actually today. I had an amazing entrepreneur, and he actually invited me to interview him for his podcast, and it was so good. I said, can you please let me release this on mine? Today's episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. At Rise 25, we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners, and we help you run your podcast so it generates ROI. As people have listened, if you've listened to this before, podcasting is much more personal to me, and it was inspired by my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and him and his brother were concentration camps in Nazi Germany, were the only members to survive. But his legacy lives on because the Holocaust Foundation did an interview with him, which you can watch on my About page. So yes, podcasting will help your business. It's been the best thing for my business and my life in general, but it helps you and your guests leave a legacy. So if you have questions, I believe any business should have a podcast. So if you have questions, you can email us support@rise25media.com, or learn more, go to rise25.com. John and I made a video, and we even left in the outtakes. So now check out today's episode.
Chris Snyder here, host of Snyder Showdown, president at Juhll digital agency and founder of banks.com. On this show, I talk with top leaders in the financial services and B2B software space about what's working and what's not with their growth programs. Today, I have Jeremy Wise here, who has done literally thousands of these interviews with successful entrepreneurs, investors, and CEOs. And we turned the microphone around, and today he's going to be interviewing me.
Chris, thank you for having me. And I am super excited about this conversation because we're going to be talking about the key considerations for managing remote teams. And, and this is where everything's shifting, right? With the gig economy, remote teams, this is a must to know about. But first, I want to just tell you this episode is brought to you by Juhll. Chris mentioned they're a full service digital marketing consultancy that's over 20 years of experience helping your business grow sales online. They've helped most of their clients grow more than 50% year over year. And the quick disclaimer with that, Chris, is the reason you can do that is because you're very choosy. You're not a fit for everyone. You don't choose to work with everyone because you only work with companies that are doing 50 million in top line revenue, that have marketing or more, and that have marketing budgets of 2 million or more. And you build their team from the ground up. And the kicker is you even will transition to their in-house marketers. So basically you'll take over your job once you do all the heavy lifting. Now, I advise, and I think I'd still want Chris to be on board helping managing things, but if not, they build the strategy, your team, and give it to you. So go to juhll.com, JUHLL.com. You can email Chris personally, Chris@Juhll, JUHLL.com. Chris, tell me about, you've been doing this for years and years and years of remote teams.
Yeah. So let me try to peel back the onion a little bit. I'll shoot from the hip. I'll do my best to describe the key areas and stay on track with the key areas. And then also give you a little bit of my history as well. So, and I didn't even really think about it until actually exactly right now. Before I was an entrepreneur, which happened in 2008, I'd also been a business development and enterprise salesperson for most of my adult life, right? So back in the day, I remember the first time I convinced my company to allow me to work as a sales guy in my territory because the travel was like killing me, right? So enterprise sales guy, I had the mountain states, states like Idaho and Utah and Colorado, in Wyoming, and Nevada. And I had a patch of clients in there, and I was flying from Los Angeles. Literally, I would leave on Monday, and then I would make this route, Monday through Thursday, and then I would come home on Thursday or Friday. And I literally was flying domestically, and I'm not talking trips to New York and France. I'm talking trips that would take, between an hour or two. And I was literally flying like 60 segments a year, and I was putting over 100,000 miles on United. And I finally just got to a point where I was like, well, Jesus, if I could at least live in one of the states that I represent, or at least get closer to the action, then my life would probably be better. I would be more productive. My life would be better. Back then they had this thing called Lotus Notes. I could connect to it. It was like connect to the server. I could send all my stuff through Lotus Notes. So at the end of the day, I've actually been working remote for probably 20 years, right? Just we've never as a society classified it that way. And there's been a very small group of folks, I think, that have lived that life. I think it probably started with the sales people. And I think it's, morphosized into knowledge workers in general. But it's only morphed into knowledge workers in general for specific industries. And then within those specific industries, I also think there's geographies based on culture dynamics that, and also unique and individual leadership teams that are even progressive enough to understand that people don't need to come to the office to be productive. And just because they're working remote does not mean they're not working. We had to figure out, okay, now fast forward to 2008, when the last crisis happened. My business partner and I are running an agency, and if you're a undercapitalized company doing knowledge work, it doesn't really enter into your mind, because, by the way, they didn't have WeWork back in 2008. It doesn't really enter into your mind that you need to go spend thousands of dollars a month on a commercial office lease situation. You have to buy phones, you have to buy computers, like towers that need to sit in there, right? You need to buy VPNs, software. You have to have servers. And back then the servers were on premise. There was no such thing as AWS. The economic outlay for working in an office, actually the cost to us back then, and probably a lot of folks that hopefully this podcast resonates, it simply doesn't make sense, nor was it even an option. Because I'm not going to spend $5 or $6 or $7 or $10,000 a month because I didn't have the money and I didn't want to. I needed to spend that money on people that could actually deliver. And then I had to figure out, at one point, we had people coming into our home, literally had a key to our home, and they were walking through my kitchen and my living room. And then they were walking upstairs to one of my 4 bedrooms, which was converted into office space. They were in my house.
Nice.
These people, right?
I mean, I think that's how you'll have to fact check me, but Craigslist, I think bought a house and just had people work out of some Victorian house,
Yeah.
and that's $1 billion company.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's evolved over time, but
You had the original co-working space, Chris.
Exactly. I should have capitalized.
You were WeWork before WeWork.
I should have capitalized on that.
Yeah.
So this is how we began the journey. And then, of course, mentally, psychologically, in order to graduate and be real grown-ups and real business people, we had to get an office. I mean, a boat anchor. I mean, an office, sorry. We too had to act like bazillion-dollar companies and provide free coffee and a water cooler with filtered water, and potentially even pay for people's snacks, take people out for happy hours, right? These are back then instilled today, again, getting back to your geography, getting back to your vertical, getting back to what you do and how you do it, and the DNA and the culture of your teams and your leadership. Today, that is a company. That's a company for probably, at least 90% of Americans, right? But that's shifting. And now, because you've probably done some office work, I don't know, I'm making an assumption, but I've worked in offices, and I can tell you for sure right now, there's a lot of people there that I couldn't stand being around. There was a lot of people there that would interrupt me and waste my time. Given that I traveled a lot anyway, what was the point of showing my face in the office? Well, the psychology behind showing your face in the office is because, well, everyone else is there. If Chris isn't there, clearly he's not working. Clearly he's not working, even though I'm hitting my numbers, right? So you go through the gyration, you get in your car and you drive from Malibu to Santa Monica. You spend an hour in your car, right? And then you work until 6 p.m. and then you spend an hour and a half in your car and you drive back to Malibu and you get home at 8 o'clock at night. So you leave the house at 7 a.m., you get home at 8 o'clock at night, right? So as I'm talking about it right now, I'm kind of doing this off the cuff and I'm really thinking through the problem. We solved this problem years ago. A, because we had to, and B, because it's our company. And I think we were smart enough to know a long time ago that this isn't real work. And I can tell you about our experiences too with office space as we graduated to the coffee machines and the snacks. And we graduated from 1,200 square feet to 2,500 square feet to 3,900 square feet and $12,000 a month in a 3-year commercial real estate lease that, we're on the hook for $1 million with 30 employees that are coming from all kinds of places in LA that needed the ping pong tables and they needed the pool tables, which, oh, by the way, they never used, and got to have the snacks and got to have the team meetings. And we made it. We made it. So I'm not coming from a position of not ever having all of that. I get it. But what I didn't see and I see now, and what I hope that your audience will hear is, given current circumstances in our environment, right, regardless of, international labor, right, or international talent, they can't come to your office. You're not going to hire them. They're not going to fly here. They're not going to get a home here. They're not going to be here. So that's a key consideration, because cost has a big factor in geography and who you can hire, especially in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago. You're in one of those big markets, Miami. I can just make a list of all the places that I would never set up shop to hire labor anymore. And by the way, I went to school in South Dakota. I think there's a lot of talent there that's very affordable, and we align with our values. Our value system is important. I'm not moving my family to South Dakota to set up an office in South Dakota. It does not make sense, right? So, yeah. Okay, I've taken you through my experience, and hopefully I've insinuated.
You sold me, Chris. I'm sold.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it, there's some professions that can't, like if you are a dentist or something, but there's a lot of professions that can. So I'm sold on going, if not more remote, all remote potentially.
All remote.
Yeah.
All remote. If you're a knowledge worker, and here's the other thing, my wife says this all the time. Everything is always both. I think she bought the URL. I'm not kidding. I think we own the URL. Everything is always both. And if you approach life.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that some people get stuck in this way of thinking that basically states it's either a 1 or a 0. It's binary. You either work remote or you don't work remote. Well, that's bullshit, because you have multiple people working remote and you have multiple people that have to work in the warehouse because there's stuff that needs to be done. You're either 100% remote or you're 100% in the office. No, and we frequently did this, people that had long commutes, more than an hour, we would say, why don't you come in on Fridays because traffic is a little lighter, come in for a few hours, make some eye contact with the team, be a human being, go to lunch with us, right? If you care to. If you don't, you don't have to. But it's not 100% remote or not 100% remote, right? Everything is always both. You can do them both, right? So don't be stubborn. Like, think outside the box. Think about how to make it work. Don't think about how to crush it, meaning spoil it or mash it up into pieces that don't make sense, or break the nice set of Legos. Like, what? Don't do that. There's a nice set of Legos here that have clear instructions. I have the instructions. I have the keys. I have the unlock code because I've spent since 2008 running a company like that. And even before that, I've spent my own time figuring out the discipline and the tactics and the strategy and the mindset around being accountable for myself. I don't need to go to an office and sit in a chair and have the vice president of whatever walk by and look at my computer screen to make sure I'm tippy tapping on it and working. We've changed. We've fundamentally changed. And it took a while, right? And since it took a while, people kind of got bored with it. They ignored it. It's never been top of mind. And what's going to happen with this shift is they're going to wake up one day, like we see a little bit more recently, and they're going to have the oh fuck moment when no one can come to work for 2 or 3 weeks. Now, look, if you're a leader that has never considered this, and you've never even tried it, and I've talked to a lot of people, by the way, over the course of the last couple of weeks, I am shocked at the ignorance and the bliss and the lack of trying and the stubbornness around evolving and testing through this process with remote teams.
Yeah. Now people are forced to.
They're forced. They have no choice. And I believe this shift will fundamentally change how knowledge work is done forever. But there's a couple ways it can go, right? There's 2 sides of this line. If you're an employee, or if you want to be a remote worker and you want to have some of your life back and you want to have some of your productivity back, now is the time to not fuck it up. Here's what I mean by that. We're going to go through some tools. We're going to go through some business process today. We're going to talk about my experiences because I can do this all day long because I've done it. But if you're a knowledge worker and you're getting the opportunity, and it is an opportunity, this is not an entitlement. This is an opportunity. This is for people that understand that they have a job to do and they got to do it. And it's not about the hours that you put in. It's about your effort and it's about your results. But if you're one of those people now working remote and you're taking advantage of this, shame on you. Shame on you. You shouldn't be. Now is your time to shine. And you should be doing the work that you should have been doing in the office, and you could be doing the work at least 3 times better because you have limited distractions. You have the autonomy to do whatever you want, however you want to do it, without someone breathing down your neck. So if you're not doing a good job, shame on you, because this is a shift. And if anybody in the planet wants to make this shift happen for yourselves and your families and to get some of your time back and to actually be more productive than you've ever been in your life, you better do the job right, and you better figure out this remote strategy for yourself. Do it for yourself and do it for your family. Don't take advantage of this opportunity right now. So that's so the one side of that line is taking advantage of the situation, and you're going to wind up on the wrong side of the line. The other side of the line, which I'm hopeful for and I think will happen, is the big productivity win we're going to see out of this. Now, of course, the reason why we're forced into the shift is because of extenuating circumstances, which no one could control. But I'm it was a trigger for something that needed to happen for a long time, right? So if we get on the right side of this evolution, which feels like it's a flashpoint, but it's actually been happening for 20 years, but it feels like it's a flashpoint. It's been evolving, but it's been slow, so it's been dull and boring. So it hasn't been exciting, so no one's paid attention to it. People only pay attention to stuff that moves quickly and explodes right in front of their face, right? Because a lot of people are either fear-based or they're opportunistic and they have to see it right when it happens. But the other side of that line is an increase in productivity, an increase in overall happiness because you're spending more time with your family, in a decrease in anxiety because you're not banging your head into your steering wheel because some jerk cut you off, right? And now you're spilling coffee on yourself when you're on the 405, right? The benefits of this arrangement are on the right side of that line. The benefits of this arrangement far outweigh the potential fears around, are my employees working? Are my remote workers working? Am I getting what I want out of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And so I know you mentioned tools. Maybe talk about some tools people should use, and then we could talk about some of the business process about managing the remote teams. What are some tools?
Yeah, of course.
People love tools.
So I've talked a little bit of the psychology and the overall kind of market and how we got here. Clearly, I'm pretty adamant that this is the right way to go if you're in the right space and you're the right person and you're the right firm and you're progressive enough to make this happen. You will beat all of your competitors. You will beat them bloody because you will save money. You will have happier people, right? You will move faster. Your life will be better. Your company will be better. Your life will be better. Your employees' life will be better. Everyone will be happy. I promise you, if you do it right, but you can fuck it up, right?
No pressure.
No pressure. So let me just run you through a list of tools. Communication. You can use, Gmail, or we use Office 365, right? That's a whole package, right? Video. We use Zoom. We do not use GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting, I will never endorse your product. It's awful. Instant chat, we use Slack, okay? We decided strategically to use best of breed tools for each communication or project management or resourcing and time tracking mechanism. We use best of breed tools and we aggregate them all. You could go with something like Microsoft Teams, which is relatively new. It keeps popping up on my desktop and I keep trying to make it go away, right? Because I don't even want to look at it. I think Microsoft has tried on a number of occasions, and good for them. That's what they should be doing for their shareholders. They should be trying to create the God package, which is what I'm going to read for you, which I don't believe any single vendor can do, nor should they try to do, because you can't be best of breed at everything. You wind up doing everything at a mediocre level. And people, customers and consumers nowadays, if you have a mediocre product, you're toast. You're toast. So don't even try to do something unless it's best of breed, it's very specific, and it fits well within your core competency. So that's the communication aspect of it. We're on Zoom right now, on Zoom video. I've got a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge in my background. I can switch it to a ski resort. I can switch it to me in outer space. I can switch it to me in the Bahamas. I can switch it to me in New York City. I can switch it to me standing in front of the Statue of Liberty or being. These are neat, novelty little communication tricks that allow you to be there. And it allows people to release a little bit and allow your communication to enter the neocortex, right? So project management, cloud file management. We use Box, right? Some people use Dropbox. We've been using Box for 10 years. And the only reason we ever selected Box is because we used to produce Flash as an agency, Flash banner ads. No other emulator was able to play those files natively inside of that folder, right? So
yeah, you don't want someone having to download it to their computer, then playing
yeah.
it. You want something that will natively play it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That
then
makes sense.
Box has really evolved, and since then they've become a publicly held company. I believe they're like best of breed. They do a great job. Now, a lot of that stuff has been commoditized. A lot of people use Google Drive now, which I don't like. I don't feel like I feel like the sharing and the safety and the security around that with workflow, not the product itself, but with workflow can get a little unwieldy, and you might be sharing a little bit too much. Too many people get access. So we have clients that have, we've signed data and sharing agreements. Like our shit has to be on lockdown, not floating around on the interwebs, right?
Yeah.
Project and task management. Best of the best of breed, no matter what. Don't argue with me about this, is Jira, and Jira again. They have done a great job, especially evolving for marketing folks. They've created a whole stack for marketing teams. I know you've got some noise with Trello and Asana, and there's so
Does
many.
Jira own Asana also, or no?
They may have bought them. Yeah,
Okay,
they may have bought them recently. But you can get tangled up on this stuff. And the thing that I warn people about the most, you can go out and you can be death by tool, right? They're like shiny objects and we all love them. I love them too. It requires a lot of self-discipline to not go out and just think that you're going to push a button and all of a sudden your team's going to be productive. No one's ever going to drop a customer email. You're always going to stay on time and on budget. But like it's bullshit. I've used every project management system on the planet, expensive, free, Basecamp. By the way, I love those guys, the Basecamp guys. They've been working remote for 20 years as well. They built the whole company remote. Go check those guys out as well. Not the actual product, but the leadership.
Yeah, 37 Signals is actually based in Chicago. Yeah.
Yep, 37 Signals. I love those guys. They are. I feel like they are value aligned with some of the things that I'm saying. I've heard them speak about this stuff too. So if you want another credible source, don't take my word for it. Go somewhere else. Like I'm talking market right now. I'm not talking about us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Project documentation, Confluence, also a Jira product. Okay. And then the inception of where things come off the rails, we're still heavy into email. All of us are. But the inception of where project management systems come off the rails is when someone sends you an email because you can't make other people do what you do and fit within your process. Buyers buy how they're going to buy, right? That's it. Companies operate how they're going to operate. That's it. I'm not going to go to MasterCard. I'm not going to go to ADP. I'm not going to go to a large company, a middle-sized company, or a small company and require them to follow the Juhll process. Like you got to be an idiot to think that's going to happen, right? So getting back to the Jira plugin, there's a company that produced a Jira plugin for Outlook. It's amazing. Someone sends you an email, you go up to the top of your Outlook, you push this button, it takes the email and it creates a task, a ticket, or a milestone, and boom, they're now immediately in Jira, and you can start tracking project status, right? There's some
that's for support email.
Support. Yeah, support. Like all of our clients are in Jira, right? So we used to have other systems for this, but we moved everyone into best of breed software tools in Jira for project management. And when we started using it, it was primarily for developers. So we even hacked it and forced our marketing folks to use Jira before it was really that great for marketing folks.
Yeah, most people are using it for just heavy software development type of stuff, right?
Yep. I've even if I had a little bit more free time, I've even started thinking about how we get the Git software development tool involved in our delivery of marketing assets, and that is possible as well. So I'm always. And I think this is an important comment about tools. Please do me a favor, and I know this is hard for you startups, but if you're a halfway mature and stable business and you can afford to pay for best of breed, please do it. don't take a flyer on a software company that's trying to figure shit out. You just don't do it. Just get Jira, get Confluence, and walk away, right? Get Basecamp, get Campfire, get those guys have been around for 20 years. They're not going to fuck it up. They're not going anywhere. You get hooked into this shiny object stuff where you're NLP and AI processor that sends a note to the thing and answers the questions without anyone doing anything, and you're off to the races. It's like, dude, that company's going to be out of business in 2 years. 2 years they'll be out of business, and now you're fucked because you just spent all your time, all your effort creating business process, onboarding employees, getting accustomed to the tool, and now you're fucked, right? So my recommendation is go best of breed. That's kind of our strategy. Password and login management. Okay, seriously, this is not revolutionary stuff. We use LastPass.
Okay.
I know there's
I love LastPass.
There's companies out there like One Login. So Jeremy, you and I work together. You're like, hey, can I get access to all your systems? It happened in about 38 seconds. About 38 seconds. Sure, boop, gone. There's reporting around it. We understand who has access to it. If you're being a jerk or you mess it up, I shut you off immediately. Done. These are not scary things. Going remote is not a scary thing. If you know what you're doing and you've suffered through all the traps, you know how to manage and control this so you feel safe and you lose fear around giving people access to systems, potentially sensitive systems when they're remote, right?
Any other, Chris, real quick, back to the support email. Any other help desk solutions that you see as credible, like if they don't use Outlook in Jira?
Zenefits. And Jira actually has a plugin called Jira Help Desk. I've explored it. It's too much for us at our size.
Yeah.
But if you want to stay within the Jira family, they do have their own help desk solution.
Because I hear, like you said, death by tools. Like you hear of like Freshdesk, and you hear of a couple I'm blanking on, but there's so many out there that you can, go deep in Zendesk, Freshdesk, like all these ones. So
there's a million. There's a million. And here's the problem. It's honestly, guys, they're all hammers. They're all hammers. You're hitting the same goddamn nail. Everyone does it a little bit differently, right? So you got, fiberglass handled hammers. You got wooden handled hammers. You got it's all a hammer. They're hitting the exact same 16 penny nail, driving the same 2x4 plank into the same truss. Like we should not be having a conversation about commodity products. You should just order best of breed because you know they're going to evolve. You should leverage the best of breed company's process and how they've instrumented the software, because then you don't have to worry about breaking their software because you're trying to do something unique because you think you're unique. You're not unique. There are no unique businesses. I'm sorry to say this to you out loud. You're not unique. Your kids aren't unique. Your car's not unique. Right? The toilet paper you use is not unique. Your shirts aren't unique. Your software is not unique. Your business case is not unique. You're not unique, right? So use the software the way it was intended. Don't hack it. Do this crawl, walk, run. And if you really, really, really need to innovate something after 6 months of using the software, feel free to innovate it, but it's usually a bad idea. Evolve your business process around some of these more robust tools, right? Not in all cases, but in most, right?
So, sorry, you said LastPass. What was the next?
Yeah, LastPass. We single sign-on SSO. That's a pretty robust tool. Sometimes that tool goes on-premise. It's $5,000 or $6,000 a year to start. Like we've used stuff like that as well. They're expensive. When we had an office, we used it. But look, there's a couple best of breed tools. Just please use them, right? Resourcing and time tracking and monitoring. Now, the last two words, time tracking and monitoring, God forbid that you should expect for your employer or the person providing this stipend for you to work on stuff God forbid that you would expect to give them the necessary time that they feel like they're paying for, or at least the necessary outcomes. Like, look, don't be afraid of time tracking. Don't be afraid of monitoring, because monitoring, the way you think about it in your mind, might be a foreign country that is run by a malicious dictator that is watching everything you do. That is not what's going on here. So just stop it. So there are tools for this. Big Time is a time tracking software, and I don't want to get into all the HR complexities around exempt or non-exempt employees. We have an HR consultant who's also remote. She's a genius. But if you feel like, or you believe that most of your employees are exempt, you're smoking cracked. They're not exempt. They're non-exempt. They should be tracking their time. They should be doing it in a system. So when the IRS comes knocking at your door, or the EDD, the Employment Development Department comes knocking at your door, you don't get a big ass fine and you have to go back and pay these people a ton of money. You have to pay attention to this stuff, right? So we use Big Time for time tracking. Hours get entered every single day. Every single day they get entered. We prefer and try, I would say 99.9% of the time, nobody here, apart from myself, because I am exempt, nobody here works over 40 hours a week. No one. And since they're not driving, they're not spending another 20 hours a week on the road and hassling with stuff they shouldn't be hassling with. So it's a 40-hour work week. I'd like to go to 35, actually, or 30, which is also possible. We could take that on another podcast. And then Terramind is a software, a productivity measurement software that basically allows our team to measure productivity at a high level, right? These are indicators, no different than if you were to run, the Boston Marathon. There's checkpoints. You got to run by these checkpoints to get to the end of the race. If you run by a couple checkpoints and you don't pick up water, you're probably going to be toast, right? These are checkpoints. These are also there to protect our employees and our remote workers from what could be lawsuits from clients or partners that share data, and that data gets exposed, and they come back and they say, Juhll, you did it. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. What data was exposed? When was it exposed? Who's on your account? Because we have ways of turning, Box. I don't have to share certain files with certain employees if they're not on the account. It's just good data practice. You don't want to do that stuff. LastPass, password manager. If you're not on that account, you don't need access to their Google Analytics stack, their AdWords stack, or their Salesforce.com customer data. Why the hell would you need that? You don't need that stuff. Therefore, you should not have it. You can't manage a remote team with differentiating roles and responsibilities if you're not managing this stuff properly. We install this software on your computer, not to watch you like Big Brother or Big Mother or Big Sister, like whatever you want to say. We're doing this to protect you. And we're also doing this to learn what optimal productivity looks like by job skill. So I've learned over many, many years by aggregating dozens of employees, I see trends on productivity that allow me to potentially have a conversation about, are you struggling with something? Because I'm just seeing that your productivity is lower than it usually is. By the way, they have access to their own productivity. They know that screenshots are being taken of their laptops every 5 minutes. These are work laptops. This is work product for clients. This is not your stuff. You should not be slacking your buddies, playing fantasy football, and doing stuff you should not be doing just because you're at home and your boss isn't walking by you at that time, right? These are things that, these are value. This is a value system that everybody should have, whether you work remote or not. You're on company time. You're there to do a job. We expect that job to be done. And here's the kicker. If you don't want to do the job, that's cool. Shut your laptop, right? And then just don't build a time. You can do whatever you want. You're a grown adult. You don't have to do this work. It doesn't need to be measured. You certainly don't have to work here, right? It's all good. There's a lot of other companies probably that measure less, cut less, and have lower expectations. And if you're that kind of person, you would never be able to operate in our work remote environment. Never. So we
big
use
time in TerraMind.
Yep. So we use TerraMind, and we also use Hivedesk because Hivedesk is a little bit more contractor friendly. The TerraMind software is more geared towards installing application services on laptops that you own as the employer, and you distribute these laptops. If you're going to bring a contractor in, we have a whole remote contractor onboarding process as well to protect ourselves and our clients. Like you're not going to mail a laptop to a remote contractor. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. So there's different ways around this. HR, benefits, payroll, time off, Zenefits. You've probably heard of these guys. Not expensive, right? $8 a month for that. Specialty software, Adobe, Bitbucket, right? If you're a creative, you're probably going to use Adobe. If you're a dev, you're probably going to use Bitbucket. So the grand total for all the core services that I mentioned is about $150 per month per employee. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is best in class. We haven't, and maybe what we should do is record another episode to talk about the actual accountability, the business process, and the workflow. But today, covering the market, this shift has been happening for 20 years. So we started with the market. We jumped into tools and technology, right? And I think what we should probably do is come back to business process and workflow and accountability, right? So, what is the onboarding process? What kinds of things? How should you be using Slack? Should you be using Slack to interrupt your teammates because you have a mind fart and you need to say something to them right away and interrupt them? Should you be using Slack for that? You need to think about that, right? Should you be using Jira to send a ticket when really what you should be using Jira for is something that's project-based and time-based? And then maybe you should use Slack or a morning stand-up to address something that shouldn't go into Jira immediately, right? So you need to start figuring out as an adult and as a productive human being, how you use these tools. We have great operations and discipline around this and culture around this. So if someone is pinging someone in Slack, or if someone's not sending Jira tickets right without the proper detail, they'll get after them. And they have we're a team. No one's in charge of this stuff. You guys work together as a team, hold each other accountable for the proper use of these tools, the proper workflow to complete the mission, right? So I think what we could do is next week we should talk about some of our real detailed process workflow stuff.
I think people could see, Chris, from all the tools, these are the things you use to manage remote teams, but there's specific processes under each of these tools and rules that you have so that it increases productivity. Because we're also heavy users of Slack, and I really get irritated if people don't use it right because it decreases productivity. Like if they do we can get really granular. If people put a new thread, instead of doing a message under that thread, it totally ruins the productivity of Slack, right? So
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. And you know what? Honestly, this stuff is hard. It is hard. And, I've found over the years, it's really, really hard to identify someone in the interview process that is going to really excel at this. Now, I think, for right or wrong, and I would love for anyone to challenge me on this. I'd love to have that conversation with you, or for you to book a meeting with me and let's trade notes on remote work process. I think we're best in class. I think our staff is best in class. And to get there, we had to try really hard to identify people that we believed, based on our value system and how we operate, are also going to be best in class.
It goes into hiring.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's fucking hard. There's a lot of people walking out on the street that you think in the interview process, they're going to be fine with this stuff. They are not fine with this stuff. They are not good at this stuff. They don't have the proper necessary attention to detail. They push back and argue about why we do what we do. Those people will never work here, never. Mm-hmm. And they shouldn't be representing our clients, right? So make no mistake about it. I know I rambled through some of this stuff and I acted like, oh, this is gravy. Well, that's because I've been doing this shit for 15 years, right? Like, I hope it's gravy for me right now, but make no mistake about it. This is hard.
What do you use? We get to have another conversation about best practices, onboarding process. I think talking about a lot of these tools is an amazing start for people. But what do you use to weed people out? Because it goes back into kind of your original conversation of, listen, don't take advantage of this opportunity, right, to work remotely. And it kind of goes into, well, if we hire correctly, we have the people who won't take advantage of this opportunity. Are there any processes on the front end that you use to weed people out?
Yeah, well, I've got, and again, this goes back to not because we're so smart, it's just because we've had our ass kicked so many times. The old way of hiring, in my view, is to start the discovery process, find the resumes, have the phone interview. Like I've been through the whole top grader thing. Like and I'm not saying that that's not the right system. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to integrate and implement what I believe to be a faster fail-fast process that does not allow people to be onboarded as employees unless they can prove to you that they can deliver something before they even start working for you. So what I do is I say, look, after a 30-minute conversation, I say, look, I don't really care what you say. Here's what we're doing. I now care what you do. If you're excited about working with Juhll, and I've already told you it's going to be hard. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. If you're excited about working with Juhll and you're excited to be working with some of our clients on their projects, you have to deliver work product for me on a part-time basis for the next 30 days. That's my investment to you. I will pay you. I will spend the time with you onboarding. I will, we're going to spend hours and hours on this shit. But I can tell you right now, I can tell mostly if people are going to make it within the first 1 week. 1 week with our operations manager, 1 week with a couple of my team members, 1 week with me on a 15-minute stand-up with you every day, you're toast. You just won't make it. And so I'm not saying that to
be. It's the Juhll Hell Week.
Look, I'm not saying that. It's
like the Navy SEAL Hell Week.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not saying that to be rude. I truly, honestly believe there is a perfect job for everyone, and you should not, if you're not passionate about this and you don't want to do it this way, that is okay. You do not have to work here, so don't suffer through it. I'm not going to suffer through it. I don't have that much time, right? So get in here, learn our process, listen to what our operations people tell you, listen to what your teammates tell you, listen to how they say it, what they say, listen to and do it. This is not up for discussion. You have to do it this way because this is how we have created success.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Chris, first of all, everyone should check out Juhll.com, Juhll.com. But what are you, or now or usually in the future, hiring for? And someone's listening to this and they're like, I would love to look into possibly working with Juhll in some capacity. What maybe you're hiring now, or maybe there's usually like a demand in the future? What kind of talent are you looking for?
Yeah, so I tend to look at people based on their ability to be agile, move quickly, and kind of take these things in stride, right? So I don't look for talent like I really need a salesperson, right? I don't think about things that way. I think about things like, look, the primary problem that we solve in our business as a fast-moving digital agency that represents a landscape and a marketplace that is fast-moving, you have to embrace problem solving. You have to embrace literally getting assaulted with fires like morning, noon, and night. You have to be okay with that. So it's a problem solving kind of culture, right? You have to be okay with learning new things every single day of your life, always staying up to speed and solving problems, right? And if you're not okay with that pace and you're not okay with that speed, you're never going to work here regardless of your core technical competency in an area. If you're the best salesperson on the planet, but you're not evolving, you will not work here. If you're the best engineer on the planet and you're not evolving, you will not, and you cannot work here. If you're the best engineer on the planet and you lack attention to detail and project management skills, you will not work here, you will fail, right? So I'm a little bit more about core competencies, and I'll list a few for you, right? Like, you got to know about digital marketing. That's specific to this job. You got to be great with documentation, which means you have to be able to write a coherent sentence and document what the hell you're doing. If you can't document it, it ain't happening, right? You got to be able to prioritize your work. You also have to be able to coordinate your work with other people's work. So prioritization and coordination. You have to be a good client person. You have to be able to make the clients happy. And that's not by talking about baseball and football and talking about your trip to the Golden Gate. That does not make clients happy. That's not value-based, right? You have to be able to effectively manage your meetings, whether you're a developer, whether you're an administrative person, whether you're an engineer. If you can't effectively manage a meeting, you're not going to be able to work here. I don't care how smart you are, right? You got to be able to support your team. You got to be a good communicator. You got to be good at building relationships. You got to be adaptable. You got to be good at listening. You got to be proactive. You got to be results oriented. You got to be good at setting your own goals. You got to be transparent, and you got to be good at working remote. You got to be fast. You got to follow the process, right? You got to use the tools. Like, I could go on forever about this stuff. It's hard, right? So the kind of people I'm looking for, the kind of people that our team is looking for, they're looking for you to come here and take bricks out of their backpack. If you're not aligned with some of the things that I just mentioned, it's just never going to work for you here, right? Does that make sense?
I think we should cut this and send it to any new recruits, Chris. Chris, I want to be the first one to thank you for having me. It's always an enlightening conversation. People should check out more of the podcast episodes, and I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. We'll see you on the flip side.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.